Let me go ahead and call the meeting to order. The date is February 28th, 2022. This is the Carver Heights, Montclair area CRA meeting. Everybody would please stand for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your many blessings. We pray that you continue to bless this community and this great city. Please guide and direct this commission, our staff, this team, as we work together to make our city better. We pray for peace in the world. We pray for the people of Ukraine who are fighting and many giving their lives for the freedom that so many of us take for granted in this country. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So first order of business, just need a motion to approve the minutes from the November 22nd meeting.
So moved, Mr. Mayor. Chairman.
Second.
Okay. Any comments or revisions? Okay, roll call.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Burry?
Yes.
Commissioner Jasper?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Connor?
Yes.
Chairperson Peterson?
Yes. Next item, discussion on the Carver Heights, Montclair area Renaissance Plan. And Mr. Minner, you going to start this off?
I will. And I'll tee it up for Dr. Jasper here. So this is, I guess, a couple of months now in the making. If you recall, the CRA board over the summer through the CRA budget, through the citywide budget process, and specifically the CRA budget, we noticed and have a reasonable revenue stream coming through. So Dr. Jasper and I will talk about that. But essentially, the concept is to bond the money or get a loan or whatever so that we can leverage projects versus do them singularly, which will give us a little more punch in getting improvement and redevelopment jump-started in the Carver Heights area. So the past couple of months, the team has been coming up with some different concepts and putting them together and sharpening up the pencil so we can make you this presentation. I think the presentation does a lot to look at our finances, put together some solid projects, and then also marry the West Leesburg CDC efforts so that we know that the investments making in the Carver Heights area aren't duplicative and they're using the CRA money as well as the American Recovery money to its fullest potential. So with that, Dr. Jasper, and I got to mention the team. So this presentation comes with a lot of work from Dr. Jasper, of course, Ken Thomas, myself, and Max Parker had some influence too. Let me scratch some and influence from the representing the West Leesburg CDC. So, Dr. Jasper.
Good evening. I'll go ahead and get moving. As Al aforementioned, this is our Renaissance redevelopment plan that we have tonight. As you know, the CRA, let me give you an overview of the CRA. All right, as you know, the CRA has grown tremendously over the past 10 years from a financial standpoint. And with that being stated, there have been some blighted conditions that have not improved. So therefore, tonight, our goal is to revamp the community and improve those conditions and eliminate blight and slum conditions. So therefore, we'll create economic opportunities, reduce the crime, and also foster a better community for individuals to live, and also too, we want to use those resources from the CRA. Our plan involves acquiring property, demolishing properties, and also developing new structures. So we'll use the $5 million that we have planned or allocated from a bank loan. We want to, there's about 20 to 25 vacant lots within the CRA that we would like to purchase to have this project successful. Also, there are quite a few dilapidated buildings that we want to demolish, and also include some new residential single-family properties, and in order to do that, we need some sewer and water upgrades, some roads, internet access, sidewalks improvement, and also just overall beautification of the community. The resources that will be needed will be the Public Works Department. We need engineers on board from the Public Works Department, some consultants, some economic feasibility projects, some developers, and also the infrastructure. So therefore, we need to get the funding, the land acquisition, and therefore the redevelopment. The land acquisition, as I alluded to earlier, will include some vacant lots extending from Thomas Road to Johns Avenue and Beecher. Also the Susan Street, which includes some of the Birchwood lots, and also offer to property owners within the Carver Heights CRA. And as you have here, you can see some highlighted, some of the blighted conditions or areas that we want to improve as well, and also beautify some of these properties.
So, yeah, and these maps never, let me tack on to that. So there are 3 specific areas that the plan focuses on. Commercial, so it's kind of commercial issues, residential, and then beautification. So there's some recognized commercial opportunities, kind of a Griffin Road corridor, I'll say, and as well as the big circle is Thomas, I call it like the Berry Park cluster, but Berry Park goes from that section on to the west towards Thomas above the railroad tracks. So there's that circle where we see commercial as well as residential and beautification, and then also the Birchwood area as a potential. We are starting to see some of those apartments or duplexes start to become on the market. So instead of an eminent domain thing, probably a slower collection. So as these become available, I think there's something we may want to target. So kind of 3 different areas, but
I also would like to add too, as we know, the FedEx, they also just built their new compound, their commercial property off of Thomas Road in that area. So that's definitely an opportunity for growth in that area. Some of the slum and blighted conditions that are current, this is live and updated, as you can see, within the CRA. Who wants to live like this? So the redevelopment, home ownership, that's always the American dream. Everybody wants to own a piece of America. And also too, with home ownership, I think you build stronger communities since you don't have renters, and people will take an initiative approach to invest into their community. And also too, you have those tax revenues from that home ownership. And also just progression and excitement. People get excited when they see new things being built within the community. And here are some design concepts of some single-family housing that we would like to add and see within the CRA. And also some beautification projects, some bike path, pedestrian walkways, and of course some roundabouts to slow down some traffic as well. And last but not least, beautification, just some community identification. I think it's important for us to send messages of affirmation of who we are and where we're going within the community so people can respond accordingly and just feel proud about their community. I'll let Al take over.
okay. So on the funding part, the exciting part is the CRA financially is doing reasonably well. It brings in just a little over $500,000 a year. From that $500,000, about 150 of it is taken on operations, different operational issues with our SHIP program, housing programs, and other rental and housing programs, and then operation of the resource center is that's your credit card issue, kind of got to pay that stuff. We're committed. The next $100,000, it was some programming that we did for the home grant and facade sign landscapes. So that's a little bit flexible, so you can shift that. Then the next is, let me start this bus over. $500,000, about the $150 that you have to do. That leaves about 300-ish, 250 to 300 that's available. So how do you get to, say, a $300,000 to $400,000 allocation for grant funding? The first one is the probably lower prioritized, the housing and facade sign landscape money. We've put anywhere between 50 to 100 into that, and we're still sitting on a little bit of that money. So that's money you can shift over. If you shift that over, you jump to 300 easily. So you can jump to 300 easily. 400 is the next tier that you want to look at, which is an additional 100. Where would you get that? There's an existing loan in the Carver Heights CRA, which was originally a $1.2 million loan for the resource center, where we borrowed it from the electric fund, and then we made payments, so we're paying ourselves back. So if we want to reinvest and change that philosophy a little bit, I think that would be something you should talk about. And I think there'd be three avenues. Don't change. But if you don't change that financial makeup of the CRA, you can get to your 300,000 pretty easily. If you do change, then you have A, forgive the note, or B, use recovery money to pay off the note. And we can shift it a little bit of dollars from other places. I know there's still competing demands, but I want to put that out there because there's lots of moving wings. But rooted in that extra 100 grand is how you deal with that existing note, which is to ourselves, which gives us flexibility. So if you go that route, $300,000 to $400,000, and if you go 30 years, the debt on that, you can put together about $5 million. So I started off with $3 to $5 million. Dr. Jasper jumped at $5 million. Obviously, the more you can get, the better. And the funding opportunities are that note, however we would structure it, grants, the USDA, and probably go on the grants, we'd probably look back to the CDBG monies, which become available. And we've had real good success partnering with the county on CDBG funds. So I don't think it's out of the ordinary to talk about $5 million. I don't think that's a huge stretch. I would say it's a little one. But you're definitely in the ballpark of $3.5 to $4 million pretty easily. Let me jump back to term, because getting to the $5 million involves two things. The 30-year note, you do need the 30 years. The CRA is set to expire in 45. I think if you do a 30-year note, the lender is going to want to see that that increment is there all the time. So with the CRA sunsetting of 45, the math on that's 23 years away, you're probably going to need to do some sort of expansion on that. That's not I don't think that's a humongous issue, but I want to put it out there because that's how you're probably going to need to bridge the note to 30 years. And I think we might have a financial policy that caps at 20, but making those changes, I don't see as significant. The other thing too is interest rate. That we do watch the interest rates on a regular basis. There is a little bit of turmoil in the world right now that we didn't suspect, and that is going to have an impact on interest rates. I think for government stuff, that's a good thing because we're going to see the market come back to more secure stuff. So I don't think we have issue of getting a note, or if we wanted to bond it at this level, we would probably talk note unless there's some issues going there. I don't think we're going to see 2.5%, 3% money though. Probably closer to 3.5%, 4%. So that's where we crunch the numbers. So long story short, on the funding cycle there, we've got some real dollars there that we can leverage, like we talked about over the summer. So at the end of the day, this is the presentation's provided to talk about what we can do with bonding and where we would go with it. And so the next step would be if the board likes the projects, likes the opportunities. I think the next fold is probably two-phased. One, start looking at some bank loan issues and that kind of stuff and start getting our financials in order. And two, probably looking at some organization and some consulting help to put together and target areas and specific projects.
Also, too, I just want to add, just historically, we've taken out loans before with the CRA, and we've paid them off in a quick and short time frame. I think it was like 8 years. Ken, do you have the? It was like 8 years that we paid off a loan previously.
It was a short-term loan.
Yeah. So we're able to do this. Any questions?
I have several. I don't know which one's better to answer. I know you don't exactly know what the interest rate's going to be, but you got a ballparkish number of what the payments are going to be yearly on this? Just say, we'll go the topmost, the 5 million.
Yeah, the answer to your question is we're working the equation backwards. We're working it with how we can afford it. So we know we can easily get to $300,000 a year annually. You can get to $400,000 a year if you reconsider the existing note from the electric fund. So you've got 400,000. Then the equation becomes, I don't know what 400,000 is going to bond out at. So my guess is somewhere between 3 and 5 mil.
No, it's way higher.
You think it's,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, at 3.5, a 30-year note's 270. 5 million, 3.5%, 30 years, 270.
I won't argue with your math, Commissioner.
So I mean, I think the 5 million is like actually fairly conservative. I'm not suggesting go.
You trying to get Dan Turner's microphone on?
So with the two, we'll use Dan's numbers at the 270. Is there revenue coming in to cover that every year?
Yes.
After the expenses of what you're obligated to pay, the 150,000 a year?
Yes.
Yes. And
So the CRA is just gonna have no money for the next 30 years after they pay these two bills?
Well, as I aforementioned, we're able to, well, historically, been able to pay the loan off quickly, more quickly than what we expected in times past.
I'm just running numbers here. I mean,
No worries.
if you're obligated to pay the 150 and your payments are 270, that's all you got coming in.
the Carver, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would use the words that you used, but yes, the Carver Heights CRA, if you do a note, its total encumbrance will be, depending on where you go, it's going to be operations of the resource center, bank note, or note to us, bank note for this project. Those would be the three issues that you'll spend $500,000 on. So that's the increment. So if you do the project, you won't see, your budget's going to be pretty simple. It's going to be basically those three items.
So they really want to operate for the next 20 or 30 years with no
Well,
money other than just paying this
Commissioner,
stuff?
with all due respect, this
Yes,
is
sir.
the direction from the CRA board that we had over the summer. It was, let's look at what we can do to bond the money so that we can do one big $3 to $5 million project versus spending a couple $100,000 a year in smaller projects that don't have as big as impact. So what we did then was we went back, we looked at some of the bigger things. What can we do? The housing projects that, I should have kept your map, but the map shows we've got there's specific targeted parcels that can run from Berry Park to Thomas that we would start getting the Birchwood project. So you can't do all that at $100,000 a year, or the free money, let me use a better word, unallocated money in the CRA. So the board directed us to take a look at what we would do if we would bond that money. So I don't mean to pick, but it's just a negative impact. We're out of money. No, you're not out of money. The risk that you take, the risk that you take is, will the CRA and that growth sustain the increment of that level? And the answer to that is, it should. Now, we've seen it. We've seen things go crazy where the market goes upside down and that increment falls below the base year. I don't think you're going to, even in this market, my guess is I don't think you're going to see something like 2008. Maybe we don't see as much growth. I feel comfortable that you can probably bond a good portion of this money and get that $3 to $5 million project without worrying about the catastrophe that the CRA is going to tank and you don't have enough to pay the note. But yes, the flip side of that is, with all CRAs, the general fund is always on the hook. So when you go out, you do the notes, you get the stuff, you hope that the increment covers it, but what helps keep your interest rates low, what helps for those redevelopment dollars is the general fund is always connected back as the fallback position to cover the note.
Can I also add too, with the single-family housing development, that's more income tax revenue that we'll be getting on an annual basis as well.
Sure, I understand. But just to clarify from Al, if we were to approve this, it's a two-part question. If the CRA could not cover the payments, it would fall back to general fund. That's question one. Can you just?
The answer is yes. And the answer, yes, B is or somewhere else. Or somewhere else is the gas fund. And I throw that out at you because when we did see this happen, we saw this happen in the 441 CRA. We signed the note, that $15 million note in 2010. The next day, the world fell apart and we had the major recession. And then we did so we did all sorts of crazy stuff post facto. But when you guys hired me, that was one of the first things we did. But when that crashed, we stopped doing the project. We used the bond proceeds to pay the note, and we used cash from the gas fund was propped to start paying the note when the proceeds couldn't cover it, so that it wouldn't hit the general fund. So the answer to your question is yes, the general fund is always there. That's always going to be the fallback, because that's your taxing power, and that's what people. If you default, you're going to have to raise taxes to collect that note. But we've done well to shield the general fund from those issues. So I would say that if there was something a calamity, a big one, then yeah, I would. The first thing I would start saying is, there's that money, the gas monies from the villages and that share, that's a security for us to protect the general fund. If something's epic, then, all bets are off. But I think you're at a time, even in this market, where you can safely bond out these revenues.
So it would come from general fund or one of our enterprise funds, is what you're saying. It'd have to come
That's what I'm
somewhere. Okay, and two is, if this were to be approved tonight, are these projects going to come back to us on what they're being funded for?
Everything comes back to this body. This is the Carver Heights CRA board. This body writes the checks. So you're really not, there's no approvals tonight. We're not going to go out and spend $5 million tonight. What we're asking for tonight is, this is the plan that we want to focus on. We want to look at vacant parcels. We want to look at redevelopment with streetscapes. We want to look at it with residential properties. We want to look at it with buying commercial properties. Oh, by the way, and that's where that's where West Leesburg CDC comes in, because part of your American Recovery was the $750,000 to the West CDC. The West CDC's proposal is to spend it on commercial redevelopment, to buy commercial properties in the corridors where we see blight conditions and also criminal issues, where we think if we purchase these commercial properties, we can help that element, which also fits into the CRA plan, which complements the issue of this debt. So we don't have redundancy, but we're using the funds available for us to tackle the problem. So there's that as well.
How much debt are you talking about that we would waive, if you will, that the CRA owes to the electric department?
$895,000.
Whoa, I can't support that.
But you don't need to. You can borrow $5 million. There's in your payments, right? If your payments
Yeah,
are
but
$270, why do you need to waive that money?
If your math is correct, then no, you don't need to redo that.
I mean, it's like 286 at 4%. So, and there's no world when we're borrowing at more than 4%. I mean, if you come back with more 4%, we shouldn't be borrowing money, but
Look,
it should be like 3.
I did city manager math and rounded up, and that's how I got to that.
Okay.
You're saying 285 is 30
Yeah, I mean,
years at 3%.
At 3.5 is 270. At 4%, it's like 286.
I mean, at those
It's
numbers,
just
you're right
it's a
in the
number.
envelope, and then you don't need to tackle the loan to yourself.
Because I'm with Commissioner Cannell, in the sense that I think we'd be setting a bad precedent just wiping out debts, because it's kind of then, well then, why, hey, 5 years later, why doesn't the general fund, why don't we just take some electric money or gas money and wipe out this node. And the CRA should kind of stand on their own, and they are. And I think the one thing that we're missing here is that there is going to be more in the future, because over 30 years we're going to see growth, and that's the whole purpose of the CRA, is to invest so that property values go up. And we also have a buffer because, of course, this is based on 2021 TIF, right? Because that's all we have. But we know 2022, the rumblings I've been hearing is we're going to see a double-digit increase on our ad valorem numbers. So how that shakes out in the CRA, which I think is going to be pretty good. So I think using this number is pretty conservative, because next year's TIF is going to be a good bit higher.
I agree.
I just
I agree.
just want to clarify 3 points, and I'm done.
Thank you.
So what we're speaking about tonight is basically forgiving a loan of anywhere from $285,000 to $800,000 to the electric department.
No.
No.
That is conceptual. We put out items that you might want to talk about to get maximum borrowing power. So I put that out there to garner your feedback. If the body doesn't want to do that, the body doesn't have to do that. Which sounds like the flavor from your fellow commissioner,
Well,
is that you
one point
can
on
get
that,
to
Al.
5 million without going
And
there.
I know Commissioner Roebuck said not send a precedent. We have done that before. When we borrowed money in-house, we have forgiven the debt on another project.
We may have,
and
I can't think of it off the top of my head, but what we have we do a lot of write-offs. I don't know which, I'm not saying
Yeah.
we haven't, I can't
And
remember.
I think, but I think we have done it in the past. But also, if we look at the formula, we're saying to the CRA, the electric department is loaning the CRA money, which should be in a certain geographical area, but everyone uses the resource center. This is just not CRA residents using the resource center. You may have people from Sunnyside, you're having people from downtown Leesburg using the resource center, but we're saying the CRA, you're the one have to pay this loan for a city facility. Although it's in the CRA, everybody uses it. So even if we don't forgive the entire loan, I think it would be fair and proper that we reduce the loan debt so that we don't go 20 years or 30 years paying this $800,000, or refinance it to a lower rate so that we're not, as Commissioner Connell a little concerned about, if we get to a point, because if the city starts buying property, we take it off the tax roll. So less tax comes in, and we are, as a CRA, supposed to speed up growth in the CRA. $5 million would speed up growth, which should generate more taxes, pay the loan off quicker. Of course, nobody has a crystal ball. That's kind of the theory we should, but I would just like to see if you would double check for us on that.
I am trying to bring you guys options. Tonight is not a wave alone night. Tonight is a how do we maximize and leverage how much we can get in the CRA. When you have that discussion, you should talk about and review the existing loan to ourselves. And if the body says, no, we're not going to do that, I respect that. I want to bring these things to your attention, because the other way you can tackle that is use the American Recovery money to pay back that loan. So then that is paid back. And it's just like a conversation we had, at the last meeting about, do we want to use American Recovery money to go back and revisit Market Street? So these are conversations that we're having publicly. They're the options that are available to us. And tonight, just like the other night, we haven't signed away anything. They're conceptual points to talk about how we want to leverage and how we can get the goals. And I respect where the body goes to. So please note, there wasn't a strong recommendation from me at this time.
So just to-
Dr. Jasper is probably a little different because being in her position, so as a CRA board member. So that's different. She's got a vote. I'm here providing options and things to discuss so you can maximize and leverage money.
So just to clarify, what are we being asked to vote on tonight then?
Your comments on the presentation, do you like this direction? If you like this direction, the next steps are to start going out and instruct me to get with the finance team to start going out, seeing what the bond market looks like. Can we put this money together? what's the exact cost going to be? What can we leverage? So then will you have exact numbers instead of mine and Commissioner Roebuck's estimates?
Sure. So, okay, so part two to my question is, we'll get to the electric thing, I guess, at a later date, but what we're being asked tonight is to authorize you to go out and start looking for bonds up to $5 million.
Yes.
Next step.
And if we were to approve the 5 million, ultimately though, the CRA, after they pay their bills, is really not gonna have any money for a long time other than what we just do right now with this money. And if we have a downturn in the economy over the term of the loan, some form of our departments, either general fund or an enterprise fund, is gonna have to bail the CRA out to make the payments. Is that pretty accurate?
Or we can
Yes.
Okay.
And
That's what I
it's
need to
not-
know.
It's not any different than the other risks we take when we've done notes.
I I don't think that's entirely accurate. While it's theoretically, yes, the city, obviously, we are obligated to any debt that the city issues pretty much. The idea that if there's a downturn any time during the 30 years, that's not accurate. Because if there's a downturn 20 years from now, the idea that this would be anywhere close to the TIF would be anywhere close to this amount being a problem.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just, you know, you can go back 20 years and look what your ad valorem revenue was 20 years ago versus now. If you see any growth at all, that number gets further and further out from being a point where the general fund comes back to it. The 2010, I mean, we borrowed on a negative TIF, which was really stupid. I mean, they knew when they did that note that it was blown up, but that's
Well,
not
and
here nor there.
let's
You weren't
talk
here for it.
about that
So,
a second too.
I mean, I just don't think you take that and say
Commissioner,
it's
I don't
this.
think we're saying two different things. I
Yeah.
think we're saying it differently.
Yeah.
But that's a big and Commissioner Connell, this should give you some pause, you know, oh, that's good. The difference is we're talking about a revenue and borrowing or borrowing on an increment, $285,000 that we have seen for the last 2 or 3 years. Each year that CRA is tucking away about $100,000, okay? So we're tinkering and just tightening it up so that that 200 can become 285, 300, or 500. So we've seen that revenue. In 2010, that CRA was generating 0 and then was projected to generate $1.5 million, and we went and borrowed $15 million without 1 year of experience. So that's the difference, and that is a significant difference. We're talking about money that we know we already have. In 2010, we went and borrowed on money that we didn't have on projections that were really liberal. I think that is a reasonable synopsis. So this is not a 2010 issue. And every time you go borrow, you have risk, and we know this.
I just want to make a few comments. I remember our discussions on this, and I remember at least 2 occasions, you know, being very vocal about not wanting to borrow too much money. I don't like the $5 million. I'd like to see it pulled back a little bit. I also think maybe we should back up or just slow down well, we can go ahead and start the process, but, you know, rates obviously have taken, I hope, a temporary spike. I'm optimistic that rates will settle back down rather quickly, probably in the same timeline we'll work through this process. I'm a former banker. I don't like the 30-year loan. Hearing that the CRA expires in 2045, I don't know why we wouldn't just make it a 20-year loan. I don't like tying up this much money, leveraging it that far out. I think that's going to, you know, that would just make the math easier. We don't have to then extend the life of the CRA. And my last comment is I am going to struggle, like Commissioners Connell and Roebuck, on forgiving the note. Whether we've done it in the past or not, I think it kind of sets a bad precedent. You know, everybody's going to be like, oh, just borrow from the city, and I'll, you know, come back in a couple of years and I'll get it waived by the city. So that doesn't sit real well with me. You know, I do fully support everything else about. I mean, I fully support the project. I want to borrow. You know, I may be more in the 3.5 range. I like what we're doing with the money, and I like everything about it. I just want to be more cautious, more conservative in what we borrow. We need to wrap up. Any other comments?
What we're bringing in, how long we've been bringing that amount in? Over the last 5 years?
CRA.
It's been.
From the text.
300, 500, it's been about 2 years at 500.
Yeah.
We've jumped about $100,000 increments the last couple of years, so we were kind of hanging out around 250, 350, and 5 now for the last 2 fiscal years.
Okay. And doing the 5 million will give us a chance to expand in the commercial side and the resident side, which increase our tax base, correct?
Yes.
I mean, the more you spend, the better in that case, in that light, so don't take that one out of context.
And I just want to chime in, we'll have the debt amount plus the 750 that the city just moved over from the American Recovery Act. That money will go towards the same projects, correct? I know you said emphasis on commercial.
The American Recovery monies with the partnership with the Wesley DC, I think, are complementary. I think
Okay, well, they're both trying to accomplish the same thing, I guess is my way of saying it.
They're both targeted to remove blight in the Carver Heights area.
Yes.
Which is great. Okay, thank you.
That is
Sorry about
correct.
that. Sorry.
But I didn't want to mix them up, but I also thought it was important that you know that there are 2 pots, the American Recovery, because that $1 million-ish, 750, that was a big number. And so I felt like the first question you guys were going to ask is, well, what were we doing with this Leesburg West CDC money, so that you kind of add a concept of where that's going and where you leverage your bond money, and they're kind of in there working together and not doing the same thing.
Yeah, and even though they are separate entities, I guess I assume that they would kind of work together is how I look at it. Okay, thank
That's
you. I
what
see the
they're doing.
nodding. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's what they're doing. Exactly. Okay. All right.
You okay? I didn't mean to talk over you, Commissioner Connor. I was trying to help.
No, that's it.
Any other questions? All right, thank you for your time.
Okay, nothing else. Roll call.
So do we need direction tonight, Mr. Mayor, Chairman?
I
Well,
just,
I-
I think from your, if I'll summer, I think your general direction seems to be, for the most part, everybody likes the concept. I think there's some trepidation on the size, the 3 to 5 mil. So what my read of this body is to go ahead and start putting together more formal numbers on what's the actual loan gonna look like. Get the interest rates, start looking at 30, 20 year, start looking at financing options. I think it's also important that this is kind of a concept that has a lot of moving parts with a bunch of different things in there. So I think some consultant help to prioritize and identify and probably put this in a better package is important. So that's probably a call to a couple of different consultants we know, so can bring some of those prices back to you. So our next report, I envision, this is what it's going to cost to have XYZ consultant help us put together and get more details on the plan, and this is how much it's going to cost to borrow and where we're really at. Now, the next step would be go start formalizing that stuff. So I would say you're probably 60 days away from that report.
I like that plan.
And in the interim, we're not spending anything.
So in those 60 days, are you gonna come back with more specific ideas or concepts on what we're buying? Because what Chairman is saying, 3.5, we're hearing 5. Well, we don't know what we're buying. It's kind of like, okay, so is it 3.5 or 5? You tell me you're gonna do some things that's gonna really improve the neighborhood, then I'm all for 5.
We have some concepts out there. We know what we're buying, and we kind of didn't want to talk about it publicly yet before we start putting the money together to get it.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but if you tell me to go Christmas shopping and you give me a check, but I don't know what I'm buying, it doesn't excite me, so. And that may be some of the pause from some
Understood.
commissioners.
And just going, piggybacking off his comments, I remember in our discussions, I think it was during budget, that we also asked the CRA to prioritize properties. Okay, so can that be part of the process too? Or-
They did.
I know, I understand the concerns on
Yeah,
publicizing
I
the
know you
list,
did,
so, okay.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So that's
So we're not voting on anything tonight.
No.
Okay, that's what I thought. Everybody good?
yeah.
Okay, roll call.
Commissioner Christian,
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Berry?
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Jasper?
Nothing tonight. I would just ask that you just reconsider and just think about this awesome and amazing opportunity. Just let it rest and soak in. Thank you.
Commissioner Roebuck?
Just glad to see we're moving forward on this.
Commissioner Connell?
Nothing.
Commissioner Connor?
Nothing but piggyback on Commissioner Erica Jasper, that I'd like to see this go forward also.
Chairperson Peterson?
Yes, I'm excited about the project. I do support it. I just want to be careful, cautious in how much we borrow. I look forward to discussing it more. Meeting adjourned.
Can't start the meeting. Let's get Dan's iPad. Mike turned it on.
I'll call the meeting to order. Leesburg City Commission meeting. The date is Monday, February 28th, 2022. We had our invocation and pledge in the prior CRA meeting, so I'll move to proclamations, and I do have a proclamation. This is Public Procurement Month. Whereas the public procurement profession plays a significant role in the efficiency and effectiveness of both government and business, and whereas in addition to the purchase of goods and services, procurement adds value to the organization by performing such functions as negotiating, implementing, and administering contracts, developing strategic procurement strategies, and cultivating working relationships with suppliers, other government agencies, and departments within the city. And whereas public procurement professionals in the city of Leesburg and in other public and private organizations have tremendous influence on economic conditions in the United States, with a cumulative purchasing power running into the billions of dollars. And whereas a purchasing division in the city of Leesburg is committed to providing high caliber strategic, logistical, and operational support of all departments within the city of Leesburg, and whereas the purchasing division and the city of Leesburg recognize, support, and practice the public procurement values and guiding principles of accountability, ethics, impartiality, professionalism, service, and transparency, as established by NIGP, the Institute for Public Procurement, as fundamental tenets of the public procurement profession. And whereas NIGP has proclaimed the month of March as Public Procurement Month to further expand awareness of the public procurement professionals' role to government officials, the general public, business, and corporate leaders. Now, therefore, I, Mike Peterson, Mayor of the City of Leesburg, Florida, do hereby proclaim the month of March 2022 as Public Procurement Month in the City of Leesburg, and urge all citizens to recognize the role of the public purchasing and materials management profession within business, industry, and government. Thank you. And thank you, Mike Thornton.
Thank you.
Our great purchasing manager. Get a picture? We have no presentations tonight, so we'll move to public comments. This section is reserved for members of the public to bring up matters of concern or opportunities for praise. Issues brought up will not be discussed in detail at this meeting. Issues will either be referred to the proper staff or will be scheduled for consideration at a future City Commission meeting. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Okay, no comments. Moving on to consent agenda. Routine items are placed on the consent agenda to expedite the meeting. If the commission staff wish to discuss any item, the procedure is as follows. Pull the item from the consent agenda, vote on remaining items with one roll call, discuss each pulled item, and vote by roll call. Are there any items the commission would like to pull tonight?
5C4.
Anything else? Okay. Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Burry,
Yes.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Mayor Peterson.
Yes. Would someone please introduce 5C4?
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, adopting the suggested, suggested rental facility policy changes to the City of Leesburg Facility Reservation Handbook and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay.
I'm okay with these all these changes, but have we now that we've had the facility up and going for a while, I know it's very popular. Do we need to be looking at rates again, or is it too soon to be doing that?
I really leave that to the commission's discretion. I'll leave it at, I mean, it's really what you guys want to do. Our rates aren't out of the world expensive. I think we're still like in the ballpark of, if you're going to rent this place for 3 or 4 hours, you're talking $2,400. Our deposit, I want to say, is around, don't hold me to these numbers, but neighborhood, $500. Obviously, we were interrupted with COVID, right, when we first opened. So we've been leasing the place in earnest now, maybe a year or so. And we haven't had significant issue with disrepair. So I think the rates is really just something you guys want to revisit. And if you want to do that, we can obviously do that anytime. If you want to wait to the fiscal year, you let me know.
And I would just say, and I'm okay waiting to talk about our budget, but my concern is specifically on the weekend rates. And is it that we're so under market, that's what's attracting some of these events? And I'm sure there's a way that we could come up to protect some of the kind of local organizations and residents, but maybe make it less attractive for people just kind of looking at Central Florida for events.
Yeah, I just think fundamentally we have leasing out this facility has lots of tentacles. It has interference potentially with the private sector. We've gotten those complaints. It has the want to provide a nice facility for a normal function. You know, somebody's actually having a 50th birthday party, someone's having a wedding, a bar mitzvah, you know, for like, you know, normal, wholesome, good stuff. And then I think there's some other events that have come. So now I get to go graphic, the email I sent out to you with the male strippers and the midget wrestling, and then the bigger parties that have come before us where they come in lamb's clothing and end up being lions. Commissioner Christian the other day sent me a flyer. So the process is folks will go and visit recreation in Torella, and Torella is basically the one who leases out the building. And yeah, we're having a birthday party for my mom. She's turning 70. And then a week later on Facebook, there's, you know, cigar bars and this and that, and Torella's left with, holy cow, I never thought that folk was going to have that function. So we think a lot of it is to do with these hidden agenda parties that we do allow later use, and we haven't regulated that because we want to be fair and equal with everybody. Then alcohol without having police protection. So we think that bringing the hours short will to 10 will get back to a normal wedding, normal type of event, and special exceptions to midnight by the city manager. My position on that would be, you know, if the partnership, if the CDC, if Men of Distinction, the chamber, you know, the art center, they want to stay to men, okay, or some recognized nonprofit is good, but, you know, midget wrestling, I would tend to say no. And Commissioner Peterson's phone has been off the hook a little bit, because even though we don't have issue here, the chief has had conversation with Travis and I that it starts here and then goes somewhere else, and hanging out in the parking lot, which gets the neighbors upset. So I think the changes are good. I think that that's more important than the price at this stage. But I think when we get the budget process, that's probably where you want to look at it.
And then I guess, and how are we going to make sure that people, you know, now with the requirement that we have police for alcohol, it doesn't just shift people to lying about the alcohol.
We won't rent it unless they need to provide their plan on where we've got the off-duty officer lined up. We'll be able to monitor that.
Unless they just tell you they're not going to do alcohol.
Right. If they're not going to do alcohol, then we should.
So, I mean, do we need to be like all weekend? Like you got to provide an officer? I mean, I don't know how many
for the
groups are
event
on Friday or Saturday night. So they can't come in and tell you no alcohol, and we're like, okay, it's a wholesome Saturday night event, no alcohol, so you guys don't need a cop.
Right. If I think we're saying the same thing. If they say, we got a wholesome event, we're not doing alcohol, and then they show up with the booze, then the staff here is calling the
Okay,
police
it's
department.
staff here is monitoring that.
Yes.
That's how that's happening.
Yes.
Okay, just curious.
And I would just add, I hear $500 deposit, and I know you said that may not be accurate, but
It's
we
in
ought
that
to think,
ballpark. It's pretty cheap.
I think we should bump the deposit. That would kind of protect us better. It's a nice facility and also play into Commissioner Roebuck's comments. If somebody misleads us, we'll keep their deposit.
And I don't think, and I'm saying from the nonprofit person who's charging $30 for a ticket to get into a banquet, as opposed to a 500-person event, they don't care about the deposit. They don't care about how much the rental rate is. Who gets hurt is the guy that's coming in saying, I'm the church and I want to have a banquet, and you say, well, give me a $1,000 deposit. Well, if I'm having to use a caterer from the city, it's $15 a plate. My ticket is $30. I'm paying a $1,000 deposit to use the facility. You're going to tell your smaller nonprofit, small church groups, you really can't use a building in your city because you can't pay deposit. $250 for the weekend. I mean, times 4, that's $1,000 plus I'm at $2,000 before I even walk in the door. And so if I'm trying to say to my community, buy a ticket for $30, basically I just hustle for 400 people and walk away with a $500 profit. It's really not worth it. But if I'm charging $25 to get in the door, I'm going to sell some alcohol, I'm going to do some other things, I don't care about the deposit. I don't care about if it's $500 an hour, because I'm going to walk away with 20 grand. And I think that's what attracted people to this facility, because we can make money doing it. And I think, maybe we didn't talk to the promoters and say, hey, if you mess up, because basically the onus is on the promoter. If somebody comes in smoking, that's your responsibility to say, hey, my name's on this, you can't come in. And I think it just got out of hand. They couldn't control that crowd, and it's not fair for our staff to try to tell 500 people you can't do this and that, because it puts them in an awkward spot. And it's just not Leesburg. Same thing happened at the fairgrounds. People were complaining because people left the fairgrounds and they went somewhere to another neighborhood in Basville Park. So they went berserk. So you can't control once people get to a facility, hey, you can't go to 7-Eleven, can't go to Circle K. I mean, that's just human nature. It's 1 o'clock. I don't want to go home. So I think, stopping at 10, that may curb a little bit. But I don't think the price is the issue. I don't think the deposit, because if people want to come in, especially if they're making money, they really don't care what the price is. But you heard the nonprofit or other group that once had a 50th birthday party that nobody's charged. I'm throwing a party for my dad, but yet and still I'm having to pay a large deposit and a large per hour, or if I do it on Thursday. Who wants to have a party on Thursday? And I don't know if it's Al and maybe your staff can say, is the building booked to people are calling saying I can't get in? Are we at that level yet?
No.
Yeah. See, the old building, we couldn't get in. You have to book it 3 months in advance, but I don't think we're having that problem.
Any other comments from the commission? Any public comments? Okay, roll call.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Bury,
Yes.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Mayor Peterson.
Yes. Moving on to public hearings and non-routine items. Second reading, the Sunnyside Landing case has been postponed to March 28th. Would someone please introduce 6A2?
And this is recommended read by title only.
An ordinance amending the City of Leesburg Code of Ordinances, Chapters 1, 7, and 10, with updates to the previously approved ordinance number 20-01, with the current versions of the Florida building codes, providing clarifications to the permitting process and providing an effective date.
Motion for approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
Comments from the commission? If none, public comments? Okay, roll call.
Commissioner Bury,
Yes.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Mayor Peterson.
Yes.
Sorry.
Would someone
We
please
look alike.
Would someone please introduce 6A3?
Introduced, has to be read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, changing the zoning on approximately 37.6 plus minus acres from City of Leesburg PUD Planned Unit Development to City of Leesburg PUD Planned Unit Development to allow for a single-family residential development for property generally located north of County Road 48 and west of South Quarters Road, as legally described in sections 15, 21, and 22, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any comments from the commission?
Yeah, Dan, did we get the language in there regarding the roads, the trees, and the lighting? Or do we need to amend it?
Dan Miller, Planning and Zoning. Yes, sir, we made 3 changes. One was the statement to being adjacent to the industrial use. That's under 3C land use. The second is under 5E, design and architectural standards, which is a statement using the dark sky lighting principles that we talked about. And then under landscaping and buffers, we entered a requirement for a minimum of 1 canopy tree in each front yard.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the commission? If none, any public comments?
Hold on, I'm sorry, did I miss that? That was 3. 3 things was, and the 4th would have been the roads. Did I miss that? I was reading along with what you're talking about.
We did clarify, thank you for bringing that up. We did clarify in the road maintenance, have to look that section up, but I do recall specifically we made the changes on the city taking the roads versus not taking the roads.
Oh, yeah, okay, I see where you changed that. Sorry, I missed that. Thank you.
Okay. No, thank you, Commissioner Roebuck.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes, sir.
My name's Danny Watson. I live on South Quarters Road. I just want to know, there's 3 meetings on this Winter Oaks situation. Will this be the final meeting, or are there going to be some more coming up? Or?
No, this is the final meeting. We will be approving or not
It'll be
approving.
approved tonight?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Okay. Roll call.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Burry,
Yes.
Mayor Peterson.
Yes. Would someone please introduce 6A4?
Introduce and recommend read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, amending Section 25-330 Code of Ordinances to allow 6-foot fences in side yards, subject to application of the 25-foot clear sight triangle, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Move for approval. Oh, second, sorry.
No, thank you. Comments, commissioners? Any public comments? Okay, if none, roll call.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Burry,
Yes.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Mayor Peterson.
Yes. Would someone please introduce 6A5?
Introduce and ask to be read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, adding a planned development overlay to the existing M1 industrial zoning to allow educational facilities and to request a waiver from Section 25-282(a)(1) PDO 5-acre minimum requirement for property located south of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and on the east side of Thomas Avenue, as legally described in Section 15, Township 19 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Move approval.
Second.
Comments from the commission?
Just a question on the M1 industrial. Is that heavy-duty industrial? And the only reason I ask this, I would like this school to sign some type of waiver that they are aware that they are moving into a heavy industrial area where there may be a neighbor that interferes with their perceived serenity. So,
We can do that. The property is zoned industrial, as a future land use of industrial. It is, however, an office building. It goes back long before I was here, so I don't know. But we can certainly have them sign some similar statement.
So Dan, and
Yes, sir.
on Jimmy's point, Commissioner Byrd, what is the surrounding, 'cause that's where the child support officer was, so you have some other businesses there and some future land development that may come. So are those future around them, is that commercial, industrial?
Yes, sir. Immediately to the north would be an expansion of the industrial park that is to the west. And you go back in there, I think you have Babette's Furniture and Sign Crafters. And we have spoken in general terms about future development in that area, which would simply be similar warehouse. So while the potential for heavy industrial exists, it's highly unlikely based on the ownership and the proposed expansion plans. In addition to the south, it's simply RV and camper-type storage.
I just don't want someone to come in, you have 45 kids and 50 parents and teachers
Right.
and principals saying, don't let this business come behind Walmart, behind Sign Crafters, because we have an awesome school going. So, I mean, I think it needs to be on the record, so when they come, the city manager, whoever the mayor is at the time, can pull out a piece of paper and say, in 2022, February 28th, it was agreed upon that you understood that a business may be coming to Leesburg beside your school.
So we have them sign a statement.
Just
that says-
acknowledging.
That's acknowledging that there is, because we did talk to them about that during the review and application process. So but we can create a statement and do that. Be happy to do it.
Any other comments, commissioners? Any public comments? Okay, roll call.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Murray,
Yes.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Mayor Peterson.
Yes. First readings, we have none. Moving to non-routine items, the ranking discussion of interviewed law firms for city attorney. And I see Mike Thornton coming up.
Good evening, Mike Thornton, Purchasing Manager. As you're aware, we've completed the interviews of the top 4 firms, so tonight we are here to discuss your rankings and hopefully make a final decision. So with that, I'll turn it over to the mayor to lead any discussion, or would you like to just rank first and see where we come out?
I'm looking at my city manager. I mean, I know we were asked to fill out these forms.
Pursuant to our discussion, y'all were gonna give me the vote forms. I'm gonna tally them up real quick, and low vote is better, so the less, so we're golfing. The less points you got, the better.
And I will say this, we did RFP to 5 firms. We interviewed 4 firms.
So
and-
if you like firm A the best, they should get a 1. If you like firm D the least, they should get a 4.
Yeah. Thank you, Al. No, I just wanted to comment that it was a tough one. All the firms were impressive. I appreciate everybody's interest in the position of serving as city attorney. I walked away from everyone. I actually told Al I learned something in every interview about running, being on the city commission and city business. So, thank you. Who's the mathematician? Is that
Me, if you still trust me from the CRE.
Commissioner Roebuck? You better double check his math.
Did you guys all pass them over to me? I only got one.
Mike has.
I've got them.
Mike, you got them? You gonna add them up, Mike?
I've got a spreadsheet going.
Man,
He saw you
right
last meeting.
past me.
Mike trying to get it over with.
Mike's got them. Okay, so you're going to read them? Okay.
Okay, so based on the ranking, we have the top-ranked firm is Stone and Gherkin with 3 number 1 rankings and 2 number 3 rankings. There's a tie for second with Briones and Briones and the Vos Law Firm. And then the last firm, ranked number 4, is Shepherd Smith, Comer and Hand. So the top-ranked firm is Stone and Gherkin.
Okay, give us the points on that, Mike. See if there's, so low is better than high.
Stone and Gherkin, there's Commissioner Burry was number 1, Christian was number 3, Mayor Pedersen was number 1, Commissioner Roebuck was number 1, and Commissioner Connell was number 3.
Total points for each firm. Did
That was
you
a total ordinal of 9.
9? So,
I don't,
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah, you're right.
yeah, I don't think we need to go through that.
That's your decision.
I don't think we need to go through the list. I'm looking around, I don't see any reason to go.
Commissioner Christian had a top rank for Briones and Briones.
Okay.
I like them best.
So if everybody's good with Stone and Gherkin, our next step would be, well, we would recommend that we have a letter of engagement so we can start working with them, and then we'll bring you a contract with them for your consideration at March 14 meeting.
So if they decline, do we have a backup? Or do
We have a tie.
Number
so-
2 is a tie.
Gotta do it
I don't
again.
think they're going to decline to have a feeling.
Gotta do it again.
But then I would say if they decline for some reason, we need to talk about it on the 14th.
Okay, everybody good? Okay, thank you. Informational reports, they're in your packet, the financial reports as of.
I had a question on the information report.
Yes.
Maybe Al can help us on the 001 fund. We had the VPG Leesburg 1 LLC. They had a P&Z traffic study for $5,147.50. So I'm just trying to figure out, did we pay that or do they owe that to us?
Did you catch that, Dan?
No, sir, I was making notes. I'm sorry. Commissioner, could you repeat that for me?
VPG Leesburg 1 LLC, working with planning and zoning, that's you, a P&Z traffic study with MPO, $5,147.
Okay, if we had any type of bill coming out that, it would be for a traffic study, and that would be whenever a development comes in, they are required to do a traffic study at their own expense. We have an expense, what's it called, an expense account.
So it's a pass-through. We're not
Yes, it's a
paying,
pass-through.
we didn't pay that bill.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. And so the next same one is not you, Dan. Corey Nix, apprentice reimbursement, $3,650.
Corey Nick, I don't,
It's apprentice reimbursement. I'm just trying to figure out what's that about.
that sounds like a position issue. Brandy, do you have info on that one?
An apprentice reimbursement? Like $3,650?
That would usually mean that he went through the apprentice program, left, and has to make payments back to the city.
Oh, so he's paying us.
Okay, so employee gets hired, they go through apprentice program.
They don't do whatever
They don't
I don't know what the time frame is off the top of my head.
Okay,
And then they have to pay us back if they were to go get another job somewhere else.
okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions, comments on the financial reports? If not, city attorney items. Okay, city manager items.
No items.
Thank you. Roll call.
Commissioner Christian?
Couple things. How are we doing with the employee diversity training? Did we do anything this year? I know last year we put in $600 in the budget, big item, and I talked about it a lot.
You
So
did, let me get you a fuller report from Melissa.
Okay.
So I'll follow up with you on that.
And then we had a meeting where we talked about adjusting, I think, with our health fund, with our employees, we're having to make a decision, those who've been with us for a while, in 6 months or whatever.
Yeah, I can give you some short comments on that. I think our cutoff date was April 2. I haven't heard a whole lot of rumbling one way or another since the initial inception. So I think that's a good thing. Also, we haven't heard back from the CBAs trying to challenge it. But the third thing is our exposure is still not doing good this year.
Okay. So I'm going to hear about budget time. We hear about that?
Yep, and you know, at the trend we're going, I can't tell you right now, but we'll probably have to make other modifications. And the knee-jerk reaction is probably increase the employee contribution.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Commissioner Burry?
Yeah, just a couple of things. Our downtown grants, Al, have we had any takers or
I've only
any
had
movement?
only maybe 2 inquiries.
Okay,
Inquiries or applications?
Inquiries,
Oh,
no applications, though, yet?
no applications.
Okay. And then the second, it was brought to my attention that there are other neighborhoods in the city who would like to have golf cart access to our downtown corridor. And I'm just wondering the status on a possible 3rd Street across 441 to Beverly Shores and possibly Main Street to the west side of town so that
I think
Everyone
I've
has
had
access.
those inquiries as well. I've responded email. Cliff is working on those issues. We're going to probably have some issues with DOT. The DOT was pretty much very adamant on the proper crossings here, you know, for Palmora Park, and that's why we have the crossing at Canal. I know 9th Street is a favorable crossing for the golf carters, but not a favorable crossing for DOT.
Right.
We also agree or would like to see other neighborhoods get some crossings, like the Beverly Shore stuff is a good one. And the natural crossings there at 3rd Street, that one's probably going to be a little bit problematic. Our initial talks from Cliff to DOT, I'm not going to say it was bad, but it wasn't, yeah, we'll get it done tomorrow either. So that's not a not doable type of project, but it's not low-lying fruit either. So it's something we'll just have to keep on. A classic example, too, of that where this started was Lakeport Shores, Lakeport Square. You know, the folks who live there wanted to get to downtown, probably one of the closest, but yet their road there is pretty difficult because the crossing on Dixie and then really no access from Lakeport down Dixie to get to Canal. So we're aware of those issues. Cliff is working on them.
Commissioner Roebuck?
So when we approved the gas deal over in Newell Hill, it reminded me of that lift station with that development that kind of failed, and they were gonna. We had the developers agreement where they were gonna have to put one in. Did anything ever come of that?
The lift station deal, right? You said gas.
Yeah, I
Okay.
said we did gas today in that area, and that reminded me of it.
Yeah, no, I have to go back and double check, but I'm pretty sure that when we put a clause in that contract that it was not transferable. Yeah. So the lift station deal died with the sale.
Oh, it did. That probably did sell.
So let me go double check to see if it sold, and B, if it was non-transferable. That's my recollection, but I need to confirm that.
Okay. And then I was just gonna bring up, I guess, for discussion, if maybe like April would be a good time to maybe move back to the commission chambers. It gives us a little time to make sure everything has settled down, plus March 28th isn't going to fit in the commission chambers if Sunnyside's moved to then, which I am going to be out of town. But so maybe April, unless I think would be a good time for me.
I think that's a great idea, move back to the chambers.
That one's at the commission's pleasure. If you say it, it will be done. And
Yeah, there's no opposition from me. But
Okay.
So he's saying in April after the.
We'll do, Andy, the first April meeting, we will return home. And we'll get some advertisements out just to get the public aware, and we'll get back to the chambers.
Commissioner Connell?
Nothing tonight.
Mayor Peterson?
Just want to throw one idea out for discussion. We'll probably have to talk about it in budget, but as I drive by the Venetian Center, and see how nice it looks, the Pat Thomas Field is being renovated. We got the new sign up there. The Wellness Center is not looking so well these days. I said something to Al the other day. I would go out ahead and say I would recommend knocking it down. It just doesn't fit in. It would open up the view to Pat Thomas, create more parking. We don't need to make a decision on it tonight or anything, but I do just want to throw out my idea and see if the commission has any thoughts on that.
I hate to tear down a good building. The foundation for that building, I'm sure, is a tremendous amount of money if you're looking to have something rebuilt on that site. I wouldn't be opposed to renovating it or put some money back into it, but I don't know I would be in agreement to tear it down.
Okay, and I would be fine with that if that's what the commission wants. It just doesn't fit in right now at all. And my second comment along those lines, there is a retention area directly to the east of Pat Thomas and the Wellness Center that just has the chain link fence around it. I know we have taken the fence down around some of the retention areas, maybe something more decorative, but Venetian Center just looks so good. And all of a sudden I'm noticing the Wellness Center and this chain link fence is what I see more than I see these new buildings are not new, but new and renovated. So just throwing that out there.
Aren't the new standards to do no fences around retention ponds? I don't know if they'll do that to the old ones or not, but I know the big one on 27, there's no fence.
And on Perkins, they took the fence down.
Yeah.
Is that the one you're referring to?
Well, I was talking about the one by the circle, behind the Circle K.
Okay.
The giant one.
DOT will do that if they can get some cross slopes to what they want. I think they need to get it to less than 3 or at 3, like the one on Perkins. And then with landscaping and other buffering stuff, they will do it. So I think it's going to be site dependent, but we'll put that one on the list as well to look at, with the one over here.
Okay, well, thank you. That's all I had.
Hey, Mike, and just on the Wellness Center, just to throw it out there, I don't think we ever can rebuild because it's sinking, is my understanding, is like that slab. Now, it doesn't say you couldn't leave it there and renovate it because it probably would last for a long time, but my understanding is the slab sinking.
Well, the reason I mentioned the foundation, the soils are terrible there, and to tear that down and try to put another building there with having to put a foundation and probably sinking pylons and everything else would cost a fortune.
And I thought you would like my idea of opening up Pat Thomas Field, Commissioner Cannell. All the money we're spending there.
Oh, I do. I'm not opposed to to making Pat Thomas better. Not at all. We could do something with that building, renovate it, and make it some type of museum for Pat Thomas for all the different players have played there throughout the years. But no, I'm all for Pat Thomas. You know that.
I know.
As a point of reference, we had also talked at some point in the past about moving the health center from that facility potentially to Griffin Road
which is where it was before.
Yeah. Are we still considering that, Al, or how? Moving the
Wellness Center back to Griffin, where it was before, where the Boys Girls Club is.
Yes. And so here's where I'll go with that, is when we did the lease with the Ski Beach restaurant, and we came up with the concept here for Venetian Gardens Phase 3 and building this facility, the commercial, private partnerships, and trying to get this side of the basin a little more robust and commercial so that it kisses downtown and we have these synergies going on. That lease language has that first right of refusal for that parcel, and that parcel is the area where the wellness center would potentially be, whether that be another restaurant venture, maybe, whether it's parking, whether it's nothing, whether it's continuing to use that. And so that's kind of just out there hanging. There's been a lot of delay with getting the restaurant going and COVID and the roll into phase 2 of more activity. I think down here at the basin, or this part of the basin, maybe taking a little bit of a break. The reinvestment in Pat Thomas, a good thing, a little bit of change there, but that, so having said that, the backup plan for if we ever needed more space down here, we were going to look at the wellness center, and then potentially the wellness center would shift to the Eagles, or was that the Eagles or the
Knights of Columbus.
The Knights of Columbus, and put city facilities over there. Internal discussion, actually, we might get preempted. I've had some conversations with the gas department about potentially using that facility. You guys approved the 3 positions there. We anticipate some growth at the gas department, and the gas department's going to quickly outgrow their facility here on 2nd Street, right, or 3rd. So I think there's a bunch of different concepts that I think potentially could happen to the Eagles building.
Can I just say something, Ms. Mayor, that's okay? Yeah. We just talked about approving $5 million for Carver Heights reinvestment to improve the gateways. I don't think putting a bunch of gas trucks and city employees on the front of your gateway is going to be aesthetically pleasing. So I would hope you would look at the gas department, getting them another building somewhere where it's not in, we just did the one out here on East Main, the old warehouse building we did, Public Works. That's, city facilities are great when they look like a Venetian Center, but when they like a broke down warehouse with a bunch of city trucks and barbed wire fence around, they don't look too attractive, especially with your gateway. So I would just think, when you talk internally, think about that. The aesthetics coming down Griffin Road, you got the fire department, you got the big electric department. Now you want to stick the gas department with a bunch of big trucks on your thoroughfare. So it kind of defeats the purpose of getting $5 million and redeveloping. Then you got a city facility with big trucks. So you got enough money. Just build them a nice building. I'm sorry. Just imagine want to make Al chuckle a little bit tonight.
No. Good discussion. I started it. The Venetian Center is, the parking lot can be full. When this restaurant comes online, parking is going to be more important. So I just saw a chance to open up the visibility and create more parking. But we can talk about it more at a later date. Any other comments?
And when you get a bunch of complaints, then it'll be easy to talk about. I had to park way down the road.
Right. Yeah, those would be nice problems to have. Yeah, that's like when I complain about parking downtown. I say it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I smile and say that's a good thing. If nothing else, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.